The look on my mother's face when I finally played the recording was something I think I'll treasure for the rest of my life. It was this beautiful, horrifying mix of shock, dawning comprehension, and the gut-wrenching sickness of someone who has just realized they've burned their own house down for nothing. For a lie, her jaw was slack, her eyes were wide, and for the first time in over a year, she was looking at me, really looking at me, and seeing her son instead of a monster. All it took was hearing my aunt's voice on the recording, calm and steady, saying, "So you're telling me that when Chloe accused my son of the exact same thing she accused your son of, you didn't even for a second think, hey, maybe we were wrong?" The silence that followed that question on the recording was deafening, but the silence in my parents' living room was even louder. My dad had frozen, his hand halfway to his coffee cup. My brother, Mark, just stared at the phone in my hand like it was a venomous snake. And I just stood there, letting it sink in. Vindication doesn't even begin to cover the feeling. But to really get why that moment was so sweet, we have to go back. We have to go back to before I was the family pariah. Back to when I actually had a family. It all started, as these things so often do, with a girl. My brother Mark was a good guy. A bit gullible, maybe a little too eager to please, but he had a heart of gold. We were close. We played video games. We'd grab beers. We'd cover for each other. Classic brother stuff. Then he met Chloe. On the surface, Chloe was perfect. She was bubbly. She laughed at all my dad's terrible jokes. She told my mom she loved her cooking. She was, a professional people pleaser. But right from the start, there was something off. It was in the little things. She'd tell these stories that were just a little too wild to be true. Like the time she claimed she was scouted to be a model for a huge brand, but turned it down to focus on her community college courses. Or the time she said she was briefly friends with a semi-famous actor. Tiny, harmless-sounding lies that just made you tilt your head. The first real red flag for me was about a month into their relationship. A bunch of us were out for a friend's birthday. I was telling a story about a stupid trip Mark and I took in college where our car broke down. It was a funny story, one we'd told a dozen times. Halfway through, Chloe cuts in and goes, "Oh my God, that's just like the time I went on a road trip with my ex, and our car broke down." And then she proceeded to tell my exact story, almost word for word, but with her as the protagonist. It was bizarre. I looked at Mark, and he just gave this little, uncomfortable shrug, like, just go with it. So I did, but I didn't forget. Slowly, she started to isolate him. His friends would call to hang out, and suddenly Mark was always busy. Chloe's not feeling well, or Chloe planned a special date night for us. It was always Chloe, Chloe, Chloe. She hated when he spent time with anyone but her. My parents, of course, were completely blind to this. They saw a girl who adored their son. My mom would say things like, "It's so nice that he's finally with someone who appreciates him. She's so devoted." I'd just bite my tongue and nod. What was I supposed to say? The first time she turned on me directly was at Christmas. I had bought my mom this beautiful, kind of expensive necklace she'd been hinting at for months. When she opened it, she started crying. She was so happy. A few minutes later, Chloe pulls out her gift for my mom. It was a cheap, generic-looking scarf. But Chloe presents it with this whole dramatic speech. "I just wanted to get you something," she sniffled, dabbing at her dry eyes, "to show you how much it means to me to be welcomed into this family. I know it's not as fancy as what some people can afford, but it comes from the heart." The implication was so obvious, it was like a slap in the face. Suddenly, my thoughtful gift was framed as a flashy, materialistic gesture, and I was the asshole showing off, while poor, sweet Chloe was the one with the real feelings. My mom, bless her heart, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. She made this big fuss over the scarf all night, while my necklace sat on the end table. Later, in the kitchen, my dad told me, "You should have been more considerate, son. You kind of put Chloe in an awkward position." I was speechless. Considerate? I bought a gift my mom wanted. But that was the day I learned the new family rule. Chloe's feelings were more important than facts. The incidents kept getting worse, each one a little more insane than the last. There was the time she accidentally spilled red wine all over a new shirt I was wearing, and then cried so hard about how clumsy she was that I ended up being the one who had to comfort her and tell her it was okay. Mark just stood there, handing her napkins. There was the time she claimed I had told our aunt that Chloe was trapping Mark, which I never said. It caused a massive family argument that ended with my mom telling me I needed to apologize for creating drama and making Chloe feel unwelcome. I refused. That was a big mistake. My refusal to apologize for something I didn't do was seen as proof of my guilt. I started pulling away. I'd make excuses to miss family dinners. I'd screen Mark's calls. It was easier than walking on the eggshells that littered my parents' house. I thought if I just gave them space, things would calm down. I was so wrong. The breaking point. The day my life blew up. It was my dad's 60th birthday. A big deal. My mom was throwing a huge party at their house, and there was no way I could get out of it. I decided to just be a ghost. Keep my head down, smile, say happy birthday, and leave as soon as possible. For the first hour, it worked. I stayed on the other side of the yard from Mark and Chloe. I talked to my uncles, played with my little cousins. It was almost normal. Then, of course, Chloe cornered me in the kitchen while I was getting a drink. She had that sickly sweet smile on her face. "We haven't had a chance to talk," she said. "I've missed you." I just gave her a flat look. "Have you?" Her smile faltered for a second. "You know, Mark is really hurt that you've been so distant. It would mean a lot to him if you would just make an effort." My blood started to simmer. The absolute audacity of this woman, the architect of the entire situation, blaming me for it. "An effort," I said, keeping my voice low. "You mean like the effort you make to twist every single thing into some kind of drama that makes you the center of attention? No thanks. I'm good." I didn't yell. I wasn't aggressive. It was a quiet, dismissive statement. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, pure, unadulterated rage, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by a wounded, teary look. She whispered, "I don't know why you hate me so much," and then she turned and practically fled from the kitchen. I should have known. I should have seen the trap being laid. But I was just naive enough to think that was the end of it. About 15 minutes later, I was outside talking to my aunt when we heard a commotion from inside. Mark came storming out of the house, his face purple with rage. He saw me and pointed a shaking finger. "You," he screamed. "What the hell did you do to her?" I was completely bewildered. "What are you talking about?" Before I could say anything else, he was in my face, shoving me back. "Don't play dumb. Chloe is upstairs, hysterical. She said you cornered her in the kitchen. You threatened her. You grabbed her arm." The whole party went silent. Everyone was staring. My dad and mom came rushing out. Chloe was right behind them, and it was a masterclass performance. Her eyes were red, tears streaming down her face, and she was holding her arm. There was a faint red mark on it, a mark I was sure she had put there herself. He just got so angry," she sobbed into my mom's shoulder. "He said he was sick of me, that he wished I was out of the picture. He grabbed me and told me I needed to watch my back." It was so absurd, so completely fabricated, that I actually laughed. A short, sharp, disbelieving laugh. And that sealed my fate. My laugh was seen as mockery, as proof of my cruelty. "Get out," my dad said, his voice dangerously low. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Chloe, with a look of pure protective pity. "What?" I said, my heart starting to pound. "Dad, she's lying. None of that happened. I saw how you looked at her in the kitchen," my mom shrieked, her voice cracking. "I saw your face. Full of hate. How could you? How could you do this to your brother? To this sweet girl?" I looked at Mark, pleading with my eyes. "Mark, you know me. You know I would never do that." He wouldn't meet my gaze. He just stood there, his arm around Chloe, who was burrowing her face into his chest. He looked at me with pure contempt. "I thought I knew you," he spat. "Stay the hell away from her. Stay away from us." And that was it. I was tried, convicted, and sentenced in the span of 5 minutes, in front of my entire extended family. My dad repeated himself, "Get out of my house. Now. And don't come back." I was escorted out of my own father's birthday party like a criminal. I drove home in a daze, my mind unable to process the sheer scale of the betrayal. My phone started blowing up with texts from my parents, my brother. Vicious, hateful things. Calling me a violent monster, an abuser, a disgrace. By midnight, I had been blocked by all of them. Just like that, my family was gone. The year that followed was the worst of my life. The story Chloe told my family morphed and grew. I found out through the grapevine that the story now involved me shoving her against a wall. A week later, it was that I had a drinking problem. My own parents told relatives that I had always had an anger issue they had tried to ignore. They were retroactively rewriting my entire life to fit this new narrative, to justify their decision. It was easier for them to believe their son was a monster than to believe they had been completely fooled by a manipulative girl. I tried to fight it at first. I sent my mom a long, detailed email, calmly explaining my side of the story. It went unanswered. I tried to call my dad, but he'd hang up the second he heard my voice. The alienation was absolute. I was uninvited to Thanksgiving, to Christmas. I saw pictures on social media of them all together, smiling, with Chloe right in the middle, looking like the perfect daughter-in-law. It felt like a physical gut punch every single time. So I stopped trying. I focused on my work, on the few friends who believed me without question, who had seen Chloe's weirdness for themselves. I built a new life, a smaller, quieter one. I accepted that I was, for all intents and purposes, an orphan. The grief was immense, but eventually, it settled into a dull, permanent ache. And then, 14 months after I was exiled, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my Aunt Carol, my dad's sister. Her voice was tense. "Hey," she said. "It's your aunt. Listen, I think we need to talk. Are you sitting down?" My heart started hammering against my ribs. "Yeah, I'm fine. What's going on?" She took a deep breath. "It's about Chloe." It turned out my cousin, Liam, her son, had recently started a new job at a company where Chloe's best friend worked. Liam had been invited to a few happy hours and get-togethers with this new work crowd. Mark and Chloe were often there. Liam, being a good-natured guy and hearing the family propaganda, had apparently been trying to build a bridge with Chloe to show her that the whole family wasn't like me. Oh, the irony. According to my aunt, it had gone horribly wrong. Last night, at a party, Liam had apparently made a joke that Chloe didn't like. It was something harmless about the band that was playing. A few minutes later, she started a massive scene. She accused Liam of following her into the hallway and getting aggressive with her when she confronted him about his attitude. She claimed he stood over her and told her she was pathetic and that he was going to tell everyone what she was really like. She ran crying to Mark, who, like the well-trained puppet he was, immediately tried to start a fistfight with my cousin. But here's the beautiful, glorious difference. My Aunt Carol and Uncle Ben are not my parents. They are level-headed. They are not easily manipulated. And most importantly, they know their son. Liam is the most laid-back, non-confrontational person on the planet. The idea of him getting aggressive with anyone is, frankly, hilarious. When Liam told me what happened, my aunt said, her voice laced with cold fury, "The first thing I thought of was you. It's the same script. The exact same performance. She's a predator, and your parents let her destroy you." For the first time in over a year, I felt a flicker of hope. It was a dangerous feeling, but it was there. "What did you do?" I asked. "Well," she said, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice. "Your uncle and I called your mother this morning. We told her what happened, and we told her we don't believe Chloe for 1 second. And we recorded the call. And that's when she told me what was on the recording. How my mom had stumbled over her words. How she said things like, 'Well, Chloe is very sensitive, and Mark gets so protective. You know how he is.'" My aunt had pressed her. "So you're saying it's possible she's exaggerating?" My mother's reply was the nail in her own coffin. "I just think it's best for everyone to try and get along. We can't have another family blow up. Not, my son would never do that. Not, Chloe would never lie. Just, we can't have more drama." She practically admitted she knew it was a lie, but was willing to sacrifice her nephew to keep the peace with Chloe. My aunt told me she had the recording and was ready to go to war for me. So we made a plan. It was time for a reckoning. A few days later, I drove to my parents' house. The house I hadn't been to in over a year. I didn't call ahead. I just walked up and rang the doorbell. My mom answered. The look of pure shock on her face was deeply satisfying. Before she could speak, I just said, "We need to talk. All of us." I walked past her and into the living room. My dad was on the couch. He stood up, his face hardening. "I thought we told you, Dash." "I don't care what you told me," I said, my voice shaking slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline. "You're going to listen. Mark needs to be here." My mom, looking pale and scared, called him. He must have lived nearby, because he was there in 10 minutes, Chloe in tow. The second she saw me, she grabbed Mark's arm and her face crumpled into a mask of fear. "What is he doing here?" she whimpered. "Mark, make him leave. I don't feel safe." "Oh, you can cut the crap, Chloe," I said, my voice dripping with contempt. "The show's over." That's when I pulled out my phone. I didn't give them any preamble. I just said, "You all owe my cousin Liam a huge apology. But first, you owe me one. I think you should all listen to a conversation my Aunt Carol had with my mom a couple of days ago." And I hit play. The room was utterly silent as my aunt's voice filled the space, calmly recounting Chloe's accusations against Liam. Then came my mom's pathetic, evasive responses. The air grew thick with tension. Chloe's face went white. Mark looked confused, glancing between his parents and Chloe. My dad just stared at my mom, a new, horrifying expression on his face. It was doubt. When the recording ended with my mom basically admitting she'd rather sweep it under the rug than find the truth, I turned it off. I looked straight at my parents. For 14 months, I said, my voice thick with emotion I didn't know I still had. 14 months. You let me believe I had no family. You call me a monster. You threw me away without a single question, without a moment's hesitation. All for her. For her lies. My mom started sobbing. Not fake Chloe sobs, but horrible, gut-wrenching wails of guilt. I didn't know. Bullshit. I roared, and the force of my own voice surprised me. You didn't want to know? It was easier to have a villain than to admit you were wrong. And you were about to do the same thing to Liam. You were going to throw another kid under the bus just to protect her. I turned to Mark. He was looking at Chloe, really looking at her, for the first time. The perfect facade was cracking. Her face was no longer fearful. It was hard and ugly with fury. What is this? He whispered, looking at her. Chloe? What's going on? They're twisting things, she shrieked, her voice high and shrill. Your aunt has always hated me. And your brother is a psycho. Are you really going to believe them over me? But the spell was broken. The doubt was there. My dad finally spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper. Chloe, did my son ever touch you? Chloe stared at him, cornered. And in that moment, she made a fatal mistake. She didn't cry. She didn't act hurt. She got angry. You're taking his side? After everything? Unbelievable, she spat. And that was all the confirmation anyone needed. The whole house of cards came crashing down. Mark finally let go of her arm. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a universe of confusion and regret. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I didn't stick around to watch the rest of the fallout. I had done what I came to do. I put my phone back in my pocket. My relationship with all of you is broken, I said, looking at each of them in turn. And I don't know if it can ever be fixed. That's something you have to live with. Then I turned and walked out the door. I didn't look back. The weight that had been crushing my chest for over a year was finally gone. It was replaced by a clean, cold sense of peace.